Hi, welcome back to our podcast, Life Under the Moon. I am your host, Sammy B, and today we are celebrating the new moon in Aries. And I love when life unfolds so absolutely seemingly perfectly because Aries is the first astrological sign. It's like representing a new beginning, a new fresh start. And today's topic is all about manifesting. And that's pretty much what our podcast is all about. At the end of every episode, we always try to take a listener's wish and manifest for their dream life and their dreams to come true. If you look up the meaning of this Aries new moon, it literally says that it represents goals and specifically new goals. And what I want to talk to you about today is literally just that, which is why I just love when this comes together so perfectly. So let's begin today's talk. The other day, it was a full moon, and as much as I talk about manifesting and this and that, I don't normally do this. So I was outside in my garden and I looked up at the sky. And I closed my eyes and I put my hands together like a prayer. And I genuinely went in and I channeled the full moon that I knew was out there somewhere. And I prayed or manifested or just simply talked, whatever you want to call it. This doesn't have to be a religious thing. This is more about channeling energy. So I stood there and I made about 3 wishes, and I said that I wish for this full moon to bring me this and this and this. And I genuinely felt every single word I was saying. Like I felt like the world around me didn't exist. It was me and the moon. And it was such a beautiful moment. And the next morning, one of my wishes came true. One of those wishes were I wished for enough money to be able to pay my bills because at that point I had $4 in my bank account. It wasn't enough to pay my bills for the rest of the month. And I was thinking after I made the wish, how am I supposed to get, roughly $200 to be able to pay the rest of my bills? Like I'm going to have to get a lump sum of $200 to cover everything. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. But when you think about the logistics of your wish, that's where things get complicated. The main part about manifesting is that you simply surrender and trust when you put your wish out into the ether, that you're just so full of love and gratitude, and you just trust that if it's meant to be, it will be. Like you genuinely believe that it will come true. I had woken up to about $200 in my bank account, enough to pay all of my bills for the rest of the month where I don't have to worry or stress. My literal wish. And of course, I'm sure most people would rack that up to being a coincidence. I understand, but this is why I'm making this podcast. Because manifesting is so powerful. We are such powerful beings that I don't think many of us realize the full extent to how powerful we truly, truly are. It's funny because the easiest thing in life, we don't do it because it seems too good to be true. So, for example, the easiest thing in life is wishing for something and it happens. And do you know why nobody does it? Because they say you can't wish for something and it just happens. So let me tell you a little example about that. So say, for example, maybe it's you listening that's arguing with me about that. You say, well, if it was that easy, I'd manifest $70 million and I don't have $70 million. So what you're saying is wrong. Okay, well, let's get into that, because that is not what manifesting is. And I'm going to teach you why it doesn't work that way. Are you ready? Okay. And this is something I actually just recently learned, and I am so excited to share this with you guys. And to be honest, I'm excited because I never really understood it myself until now. So here we go. I asked a colleague of mine the other day, if you could have one thing right now, what would it be? And he replies, $70 million. I kind of laughed and I said, no, really, what is one thing that you could have? And he said, that's right, $70 million. And I said, no, for real. Like, what is it you truly, truly want right now in your life to make it better? He said, $70 million. That's what I want. Yeah, at that point, I realized I wasn't getting any further, so I left it at that. If he was to take his wish, let's say his name was Martin. Let's say Martin was to take his wish and manifest $70 million. Because he never really told me what he wanted to do with it. He actually joked and said, maybe I want to swim in it. And I said to him, but why do you need $70 million? Because you have a beautiful home. It's massive. Like, it is like 10 times the size of my home. Not that it matters the size of your home. I'm just saying your home is massive and beautiful. And it's brand new. And you have a loving wife. And you have beautiful children. And you own your own company. What possibly more could you need? Everyone's healthy. And that's when he joked, well, maybe I just want to swim in it. So the reason why, say, Martin can't manifest $70 million is because he's not manifesting the real root of what he truly wants and desires. He doesn't want $70 million bills. That's absolutely useless. It's just material. Before we get into the logistics saying, well, paper is paper. No. Let me explain. That $70 million, if we're going to dig deep, would buy him freedom. It would allow him to step down from his overly bearing, stressful, insane job position. It would give him the freedom to have a break. It would give him the freedom to breathe. It would give him the freedom to live life, the life that he's putting off to run a business. It would give him more time with his family. It would give him more time to work on his house. It would give him time. So what Martin isn't really wishing for it isn't money. It's time. What he's really wishing for is freedom. What he's really wishing for is not $70 million. And that's why Martin will never be able to manifest $70 million. Because that is not what his true heart and soul desires. His true heart and soul desires something that the money would buy him. And that is what he needs to manifest. He needs to manifest that freedom. And when he goes to manifest for that freedom, he needs to fully feel it in his heart, in his soul. That, if he stood there in his garden and looked up at the sky, and put his hands together and genuinely wished with his whole entire heart and soul, I need a break. I need freedom. I need someone who's just as good as I am to take the workload off me. Maybe, just maybe, that wish will come true. And his dream life that $70 million would bring him starts to unravel. That's why most people don't think and believe manifesting works, because they're doing it wrong. And I don't want to see you guys do it wrong either. Because honestly, like I said earlier, I just learned this. I learned it all on my own by just analyzing that situation and realizing that what he was asking for wasn't necessarily true. And I want you guys to know that manifesting is so easy, like standing in your garden and wishing for just enough money to pay for your bills at the end of the month is absolutely 100% possible if that's something you truly desire. So maybe now you're thinking about manifesting a little bit in a different way. Maybe you're taking it a little bit more seriously. Maybe instead of saying, well, if manifesting works, I'd be rich. Haha. I think I just explained to you why it doesn't work that way. Because what is that richness going to buy you? Oh, bigger house, better this, nicer car. So that's what you really want, right? So I really hope that this message resonated with you. I really hope I explained it in such a way that it really does change the way you view manifesting in life. And I really hope that the next time you wish for something, it doesn't have to be a full moon or a new moon. They say that that's the most powerful times to wish for things. But you can wish for anything at any time, because life is all around us at every moment, every second. We are a part of all of it, the universe. It's all constant energy. It doesn't stop. It's always flowing. You can stop and wish at any second. It could be as simple as putting your hands together and saying, I wish to pay my bills at the end of this month. It could be something as extreme as a story I heard a few days ago watching a documentary. There was this older man who was not religious, and his wife took him to this church. And at this point, he was desperate because he had cataracts in both eyes, and it meant that he couldn't see. He could only see about 5% of light. That was it. He was basically blind. And he goes up to the front of the church and goes on his knees, puts his hands together, and says, please help me see again. Or he started by saying, if anyone is listening, if there's anything out there, because again, he wasn't a believer, please help me see again. That was it. That's all he said. Then they left. Something just as small, quick, and simple as that. The next day, he had full 20/20 vision. He still had the cataracts, but he could see. His eye doctor said that's not possible. Well, it happened, so it is possible, but scientifically it's not possible. Well, that's a pretty big wish. And sometimes our deficiencies in our life are actually our blessings. So what I mean by that is, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this beautiful woman named Blue, BLU. She is incredible. She's all about the spiritual teachings and being inward, things like that. So she started to go deaf, and she's fairly young, like probably in her 30s. And she realized by reading her gene keys that going deaf was part of her gift. It created her dream reality. And things like that maybe aren't supposed to be healed forever. What she ended up doing was she manifested not for the deafness to go away, but for it to stop getting worse. And that's exactly what happened. And now she rocks the fact that she doesn't have great hearing, but it ain't getting worse. And she can still hear. And she's using that as a blessing. I guess what I'm trying to say is, even if you manifest for something so hard and it doesn't come true, like for example, when I was younger, I manifested so hard that the guy I liked would want to date me. And it just wasn't working, which was so weird because honestly, I was a catch. And it wasn't hard for me to get guys to like me. But this guy, the guy I wanted, did not want me back. And I wished so hard. I prayed so much for this guy to like me. And yet nothing was working. Do you know why? And I didn't realize this back then. But I'll tell you why it never worked. Because yeah, I wanted him so bad. But deep, deep down inside me, what I really wanted was my dream guy. That's what I really wanted. And little did I know that this guy I really liked was not my dream guy. And that's why it never worked. Because my true deep desire was something else. So sometimes when we wish for things and they don't come true, don't get discouraged. There's probably a reason. We're either not doing it right, or there's a deep reason that we don't really truly know, or there's a bigger plan that we can't see. But always and always and always trust. That is the main thing about manifesting, is trust, surrender, and let it be. But if you want to manifest something, you need to do it with your whole heart and soul. And you need to do it with everything you got. So I really do hope that this podcast, whoever's listening, it changes your life for the better. I really wish for this world to be a better place. And if I could change one person's life in just the smallest way, and I know I already have, and it is the most magical feeling, and I know you all have too, without even realizing it sometimes. That is just the bee's knees, as I say it. Okay, you guys, this is part of the podcast where we take a listener's wish and we manifest it to come true. So please don't be shy. Leave your wish in the comments, because they have done studies that the more people wish for something to happen, the more likely it is to come true. So that's why I want to do this. We take someone's wish and we all collectively wish for it to come true. And how magical is that? So I wish that this podcast will change your life in the most magical way possible. It may not happen today or tomorrow, but one day I really hope that you feel the magic of manifesting. Now, let's go manifest our dreams with our life under the moon.